means to you, what God means to me. What's God's place in the world that we live, and to us, what does God mean? I am talking about, you're talking about, we're talking about God.
Hello and welcome to Talking About God. Today my guest has turned the tables on me. Instead of me interviewing them, she's going to interview me. So I'd like you to welcome Anne Mitchell. Hi Anne, I hear you've got some questions for me today.
I do, Ruth, and thank you for letting me interview you this afternoon. Ruth, I've got a few questions all about who is God to you. And my first one is, well, the question, who is God to you?
So it's an interesting question, Anne. A lot of people automatically will answer that with, oh, God's male. I don't know if I actually think God's male. Sometimes I like to say God's female. Sometimes I like to say God's male. So to me, God is an ultimate reality that's always present with me in everything that I do.
Ruth, how important has God been in your life?
God's been hugely important in my life, Anne. And it wasn't always this way. Like when I was a lot younger, God was there. As you know, we both went to Catholic, both primary and secondary school. And God was there as part of a curriculum. But now as an adult, my faith in God is a lot deeper, and my understanding around who God is has changed significantly since that time.
Certainly, and in the role that you have at the school.
Yes,
well.
it's I suppose I encounter God every day in a role, and I say that to people that I work with, always see the face of Jesus in what
Wonderful.
I do.
What's your relationship with God like?
I would say that God is it's like having a friendship. God's there, God's part of my world, and I like to bring God into my family life as well. I think that's really important. For me, it's about handing that on to my children. So that's what my relationship's like at the moment.
So has your relationship with God always been like it currently is?
No. I think as I get older, my relationship has certainly deepened.
Yeah.
When I think back, I was very good at a Catholic school at knowing things off by rote. Really good at that. Say all the prayers, we were tested on them. But certainly I now would say I have a deep, loving relationship with my God. Yeah.
Wonderful. Has God ever revealed God's self to you in your life?
Yes, a number of times. It's not uncommon for me to say, stop the car, and I've got the kids with me, and say, look out the window, kids, that's like a wonder and awe moment, and you'll be looking at a rainbow, for example. But on a real personal note, I think God revealed God's self to me most prominently when Maisie was born. And when Maisie was sitting in NICU, and I remember looking at her, and she'd just been operated on, and she had tubes coming out of her, and that was a time that I was really acutely aware that God was part of my world. Yeah.
Okay. Has God always been in your life?
I would say God's been part of my life, but there have been times when I haven't been present to God.
Okay.
I know now as an adult God's always there, but I think as I grow and I age, that my understanding of God's presence has changed. Yeah.
Has there been a turning point in your relationship where you moved from knowing about God to knowing God?
Yeah, I remember being on holidays. I used to write for the newsletter, Anne, and I really went through the motions. I'd find stuff that other people had, and I'd have a look at that, and I'd write my own reflections. But I remember being on holidays at the Gold Coast, and I was watching a little boy, and he was probably about 12, and it was Easter time, and he had Down syndrome. It was coincidental that we were staying in the same hotel, and I watched this little boy playing with his cousins and in the pool, and that for me that was a real pivotal turning point for me to be able to reflect on life. And I saw that moment, I really saw the Easter message in that child, and I came back after those school holidays, and for the first time in my life I actually wrote from the heart for school newsletter. So yeah, that's one big moment in life that I've had
It's
this
a big shift for you.
pivotal shift. Yeah.
So who is God to you?
God's my friend. God's a parent, and God is always there.
Now, Ruth, this isn't a question on a piece of cardboard that I've been asked to ask you, but I would just like to go off script a little bit, I suppose. If I could give you a pen and paper right now and ask you to draw God, what would I see?
Possibly a blank piece of paper with nothing on it.
Okay.
My God is a God who invades every part of my being. So to be able to draw it, I actually don't know how I could draw it. But it's something that I quite ponder about how I could draw God and describe my God. As I said, I don't know if God's male or God's female. It's not uncommon for me to say, "Oh, isn't she great? God's fabulous." So yeah, I don't know. I don't think I can answer that question.
Okay, something for you to work on.
Thanks, Anne. Ta.
Thanks, Sis Blythe.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
You're talking about, we're talking about God. You're talking about, I'm talking about God. What God means to you, what God means to me. What's God's place in the world that we live in? To us, what does God mean? I'm talking about, you're talking about, we're talking about God. You're talking about, I'm talking about God. Talking about God.